I'm Kariana Kendall. I'm a professional communications student at Lone Star College, and today I will be presenting you and me and everyone in between about diversity in the workplace. 100 years ago, lynching was still somewhat of a common practice. Women weren't allowed to vote. The word gay meant happy. It was taboo not to believe in God, and children were meant to be seen and not heard. You were told where your place was, and you weren't allowed to forget it. And if you didn't listen, you were punished. Society has grown increasingly tolerant, and now more than ever, there's a place for everyone, no matter what race, gender, sexual orientation, or religion you are. I've worked with blacks, whites, Hispanic, gays, teenagers, and parents alike. I would like to talk about understanding and managing two different types of diversity in the workplace, generational differences and sexual orientation. And I'm going to begin with the differences between generations. Varying age groups have never gotten along perfectly, but the problem has increased recently due to life expectancies. According to Lancaster and Stillman's When Generations Collide, in the year 1900, the average life expectancy was around 50, whereas now it's around 80. So instead of compromising between two generations, you're now more likely to be dealing with 3 or 4. The problem is that older generations often think younger ones are lazy and unmotivated and forget that it's important to bring new perspectives and ideas to keep a company up to date. And on the flip side, younger generations often view older employees as out of touch and closed-minded, forgetting that they have years of experience and wisdom that are vital to the company. And the key, according to Zemke, Rains, and Philip Zach's Generations at Work, the key is aggressive communication. Most of the problems with generational diversity come from misunderstandings and assumptions, so facilitating open discussions and allowing everyone to understand each other is the biggest part of managing a multi-generational company. So in summary, since companies can now be dealing with 3 or 4 generations at a time, it is vital to make sure that they each understand the differences and perspectives of each other. It's slightly harder to have such open conversations about other types of diversity, including sexual orientation. Although there has been legislation regarding homosexuality for over 100 years now, it's only been the last 20 to 30 years when you've really seen LGBT people start speaking up about discrimination very loudly, and a lot of this discrimination has happened within the workplace. The problem is that in the 90s, homosexuals were often associated with AIDS, making it easy for Americans to assume that they were the problem and not want to offer them a part of the civil rights movement that was moving along rather well back then. According to Mellinger, Understanding and Managing Diversity, there's innumerable stories associated with homosexuals losing their jobs or facing severe discrimination due to the employee finding out they're gay. And Etsy, Griffin, and Shore Hirsch, in their book Workplace Diversity, point out the fact that this kind of discrimination can lead to inefficiency and loss of productivity in a company, in having to fire and rehire and just losing employees being comfortable with each other. And the key, while protests and parades are increasing support from the federal and local governments to pass legislation, it's helping to decrease the amount of discrimination. But a lot of people, due to religious and personal beliefs, are unwilling to move past this kind of diversity. But according to Stedman Graham's Diversity Leaders Not Labels, he says that the younger generation is generally more accepting of this group, which means that as the years go on, prejudice will slowly go away until it is no longer an issue at work. So although LGBTs are relatively new to having lots of legal rights, employers must focus on stopping discrimination for a more productive and efficient workplace. These are only a couple of the many types of diversity we have to balance at work. And it will always exist, but there will always be ways for people to work through it as well. And keeping an open mind and open discussion will allow for everyone to remain comfortable and produce the most efficient workplace possible. So live in the 21st century rather than 100 years ago, and learn to use diversity to your advantage instead of avoiding it. Just remember that everyone's a minority because we're all different in some sort of way.